In this lesson, we'll be looking at the different APIs within Sage CRM. These are the tools that are provided to partners to allow them to extend Sage CRM to fit their customers' requirements. Sage CRM is an open product. It allows us to use the APIs in a very easy way. You can choose between the different sets of tools that are provided inside the interfaces, and these range from simple metadata changes, and these are many of the topics that have been covered in the other lessons. So we have internal configuration, changing metadata, and using a technique called run block. This allows the different defined structures inside the Sage CRM metadata to be invoked from tab menus and from button groups without any explicit code being used. We can also use sdata, and it allows for the retrieval and extraction of data very easily from inside Sage CRM to allow it to be shared with other Sage applications that use sdata as its mechanism for data exchange. Sage CRM also has a SOAP-based web services interface. This allows for complete create, read, update, and delete interaction with all of the data. And that includes any custom entities and linked entities that have been published through Sage CRM. As part of a strategy of choice about offering different APIs, there's also a .NET API that allows for screens and structures to be assembled and created inside a .NET assembly. Sage CRM also has a classic ASP.com API that allows for developers and partners to extend Sage CRM, and there are sets of wizards available that allow for the very easy extension of the product. All of this is backed by the fact that Sage CRM's data model is open and it's public, in the sense that there is a published application data model that explains all of the different structures. When we look at the documentation, you'll see that the structures inside Sage CRM are very straightforwardly defined. Tables are called company, person, phone. Very easy to be able to construct our own structures like views, which are needed for any of the extension techniques. This slide that we're looking at here is starting to explain the importance of metadata to any of the API approaches that we take. The foundation of Sage CRM's interfaces are laid inside these metadata tables. So you can see at the top of the diagram there are references within the system database to tables called custom edits, custom screens, custom tables. So it's the metadata tables that define the structures that we would see. These metadata references are then used by any of the screens constructed inside Sage CRM. Towards the bottom right of the screen you'll see reference to the web browser referencing either system web pages or ASP-driven pages or .NET pages. Here you can see these are all ultimately extracting definitions of the screens, partly from objects which tell it how to draw a screen, but very importantly deriving the properties and the structure of those screens and the lists from the underlying metadata. So the role of the eWare DLL is to assemble the metadata and generate the HTML that will then be presented into the different structures. If we get the metadata right, then it becomes very easy to use any of the structures, whether it's inside ASP pages, .NET, or inside the system web pages. And we'll see these in the next series of lessons by looking first of all at the idea of run block being used to extend codelessly the interface, and then we'll look at an ASP example, and then we'll look at a .NET example. But here you can see as well that the idea of metadata allows for the connection of Sage CRM to an external database. You can define the connection to an external database in metadata. You can then define the tables and how they should appear inside metadata inside the CRM database, and once that has been done, it can then be displayed inside either Sage CRM system pages or extensions constructed in the ASP or .NET APIs. The same structures of screens, etc., are also used by the definitions inside the interactive dashboard. It's used in a slightly different way, and the interactive dashboard gadgets and the S-data provider will be covered separately in lessons. This slide that we see in front of us looks at the different interface extension options, and it provides a survey of the different possibilities when using these approaches of run block, the interactive dashboard, using the COM ASP pages, SOAP-based web services, .NET API, and the S-data provider. You can see that custom and system entities are available across all of these different techniques, so they can be referenced there by any of the ways of customizing the interface. And what we can see is that our interface is generated, and by the interface we mean the screens that a user will see, is that run block, the interactive dashboard, the COM, and the .NET and the S-data provider are responsible for generating out interface information. The web services, the S-data provider is a REST-based web service, and the SOAP-based web service, they don't generate interface. The interface metadata independent approach, where we see that can we use this technique to generate screens which aren't based on the metadata, we can see that that's possible with the programmatic approaches of the COM ASP pages and the .NET API. And we can also see the SOAP and the S-data approaches. They can also be used because they aren't dependent on metadata to the same extent as other items, because they are principally interested in data, the application data, as opposed to the metadata, which is responsible for the construction of the interface. With the different approaches that we can take, run block and the interactive dashboard are simply configurations of the interface, and therefore any question of an integrated development environment using debugging techniques is irrelevant. But for techniques such as the SOAP-based web services, the .NET and the S-data provider, then it's very important when we're constructing extensions to the product that we should know that we can use those within an IDE. And if we are building a construction, an extension to work with an install of Sage CRM, then we'll want to know whether we can access and understand the underlying data structures in a heuristic way, whether we can discover the structures that are available to the interfaces. And all of the techniques that are outlined here have ways of allowing it to understand dynamically the structures available to it. If we consider the interactive dashboard, when we construct a new gadget, it will look dynamically at the different data sources to allow you to pick which data source you want to use. When we work with the SOAP-based web services, you'll see that the different techniques that are available allow for you to discover the new tables that have been defined within Sage CRM to be able to understand changes in the columns that are available within inside a table as well. An API is going to support the behavior for being able to carry out different database tasks, to be able to delete, insert, view and edit data, which within the database is typically known as create, read, update and delete tasks. RunBlock is available to us to build structures which very easily allow for the reading and editing of data. The interactive dashboard supports the reading of data and within the workflow structures to allow some limited interaction with the other techniques, other aspects of inserting and editing data, but principally it is the interactive dashboard is read-only. The COM SOAP-based web services and the .NET APIs offer full create, read, update and delete, whereas the S-Data provider is read-only. Workflow is available only driven through the interactive dashboard, the COM API and the .NET API. The RunBlock, the SOAP-based web services and S-Data providers don't have a hook into the workflow processes, although they will allow you to carry out different process tasks. Specifically, the graphical workflow is not integrated within those features. All of the metadata-based structures, and by that we look at the interface changes that are driven by metadata alterations like RunBlock, the interactive dashboard, the COM ASP pages, the .NET API. These are all capable of being bundled up into a component and delivered from a development system into a production server, because these are all making changes to metadata and called from the interface, and therefore component delivery is something that is relevant to them. So we can see there the only items which it's not relevant for component delivery are the SOAP-based web services and the S-Data provider. Self-service is a topic that is based on the COM API, and so that's an extension of the COM API, and so there you can see if you are considering using self-service, then you would use the COM API. Though I have to say that within self-service sites, because S-Data and SOAP-based web services are focused on the data interactions, they can be used within a corporate website for some self-service-like behavior. So that represents the options that we have when working with Sage CRM. And the later aspects of these lessons will look in detail at each of the API choices that a developer can make.